Intramuros was the biggest European city in Asia. It defines our culture. The problem is most of our officials do not appreciate it.
It's important because it's part of our history, part of our heritage, and one of the few physical evidences remaining of the Spanish period of Philippine history.
There are many good stories about Filipinos, people who headed the construction of the walls. The carvers were Filipinos also. It was a very exciting time. That's what I remember most, having a restoration force as big as Intramuros was at the time. Well, didn't exist anywhere in the country. When we came into Intramuros to work, what are we restoring? We do not know. How did it look, except for the ruined walls? That's why we have to dig pictures and pictures and pictures just to be able to provide a background.
And in the early days, it was really a dead town. Even when Casa Manila was finished, we would make whatever pakulo just to bring in people.
The greatest satisfaction I had was the presence of a good team because basically the three of us were the ones who set the initial directions of the Intramuros administration.
Since last year, I'm really amazed at how Intramuros has grown and has attracted so many people, considering the problems we had in the beginning. They have thousands of people coming here, and all of them are paying entrance fees, restaurants, all those chalets. Can you imagine? It's alive.
You have many people saying that Intramuros should not be preserved because it is a colonial memory and that should be erased. I don't think so. So it's about time that our people should see Intramuros is not just a symbol of colonialization, but a symbol of our spirit to rise above that.
Intramuros for me is a place that tells you the story of Manila, the city that I was born in, the city that I worked in, and the city that I live in and will probably live in for the next years. My life with Intramuros began in 1999 when I started volunteering for a museum, Bahay Chinoy. And it was from there that I started doing cultural work, and eventually which led to us establishing our tour outfit in 2005. Intramuros is a place of a lot of personal memories for me because I've been coming here since I was a little boy. I remember my first trip here was in the 1980s when we had a school trip at San Agustin Museum. And I distinctly remember getting freaked out because I went to a crypt with lots of dead people, and which nobody really explained what they were. So that fascination with Manila's history, with my personal family's history, began here in Intramuros. I think what we do here in Intramuros introduces people to our city. And by introducing Intramuros to our visitors, we tell them the story and we make them understand the city, my city, Manila, what it was, how it is today and what it will be in the future. My hopes for Intramuros is to be a place that is anchored in its past, but at the same time, it's a place that can have new ideas for the future. No? A place that will inspire people, a place that will create good memories, and a place that will make you feel good about being a Manileño. I'm Ivan Mandy. I'm a cultural guide from Old Manila Walks, and we have been doing historical walks around the old city since 2005. I see myself as a cultural worker and a storyteller, and I tell basically the story of our city. And the story of Manila begins here in Intramuros.
Every great and important city has an old town. Intramuros to me is Manila's old town. I have always been awed by Intramuros. It seems like when I'm coming here, there is an excitement that you feel that what happened in this place. There is something so sacred, so noble, so precious about Intramuros. I named it after my grandmother, Barbara, to just give it a Spanish flavor. And for some years, after a few years, we decided to really gear towards heritage so that people will see and know what is heritage, what is sinauna, yung kinaugalian natin, yung traditions natin, which will be seen in our cuisine and in our performances, in the dance that we present here in Barbara's. I would attribute it to my mom, to my mother, who taught me the value of work, the value of excellence, the value of feeding people in style and giving them satisfaction. I would want to happen that Intramuros will be remembered by every person who comes to this place because of its uniqueness, its sacredness, its history, its everything. There is so much here. I'm Barbara Gordon de los Reyes of Barbara's Heritage Restaurant. I have been in Intramuros for the past 30 years, which has been a great part of my work, my joys. It's like an adventure.
I'm Martin Tino Jr. My lolo became chairman of the COMELEC, and he was the one who transferred the COMELEC to Intramuros. I was in grade school. He would go home at 6 o'clock every afternoon. They pick us up at 4 o'clock, so I have to wait for him in his office. So I would go around Intramuros in the early 50s. It was all ruins. I've always been interested in old houses. I began traveling throughout the whole country. Intramuros was the biggest European city in Asia. This is our history. It defines our culture. The problem is most of our officials do not appreciate it. IA was founded. And Jimmy Laya, I didn't know Jimmy Laya. He got me as a consultant. Then we started having exhibits. The first ever on relieves, on santos, on ivory. We have all these horrible looking modern buildings. I wish they could tear it down and rebuild it properly. And in the early days, it was really a dead town. Even when Casa Manila, we would make whatever pakulo just to bring in people. In the afternoon, Intramuros was empty. Empty. There was hardly any people. Since last year, I'm really amazed at how Intramuros has grown and has attracted so many people, considering the problems we had in the beginning. They have thousands of people coming here, and all of them are paying entrance fees, restaurants, everything, all those cales. Can you imagine? It's alive. You can see the whole thing is alive.
As I always say before, whenever we say Manila, Manila was of course Intramuros, and during the Spanish period, and it was their prime city, and so everything that was about Philippine history and culture during the Spanish and of course the American period began and eventually developed in the walled city. And in the course of time, no, this would become also a prime urban tourism area, especially with the restoration and the heritage conservation that has been going on in the city. I think the biggest challenge for Intramuros is for it to be incorporated into that modernization without affecting the historical heritage of the walled city. I mean, accommodations can be done for the modernization that is happening. Internet, telephones, modern facilities for tourists, but it doesn't have to come at the sacrifice of what existed there before. I think that's one of the biggest challenge until today, for developing Intramuros. I'm Dr. Jose Victor Torres. I'm a associate professor here at the History Department of the De La Salle University. I teach Rizal and Philippine history here in the History Department. Well, I think it's because it's one of the closest place. If you're a foreign visitor, it's one of the closest place and one of the most visited based on tourism information. It's one of the most visited places in Manila. Because you have to remember, Manila is the capital city, and a capital city has to have its attraction, both old and new. And for so many years, that old attraction, I don't mean old because it's passé, it's old because it's part of our past, and the realization that there was something that remained behind for the people to know and experience and see with their own eyes is probably something that's an experience, a good experience for visitors, both foreign and local. I'd probably siguro describe Intramuros as rich. It's rich in heritage, it's rich in the Filipino identity, and it's very rich in our history and culture. And I think that would fit the description not only before but today. And as I always said, whenever you walk through the streets of Intramuros, you are walking through Philippine history.
Intramuros is valuable not only for me but for the whole of the Bureau of Treasury because it's a convergence between the distant past and the present. Over the short span that I have served as the treasurer, I have seen how, through the efforts of the Intramuros administration, places like Fort Santiago, the surrounding walls and gardens, the old churches, and the plazas have become vibrant attractions, showcasing the old alongside the new. So indeed, Intramuros is on the rise. I'm Rosalia De Leon. I'm currently the Treasurer of the Philippines, and I've been working here in Intramuros since 2013. Well, personally, Intramuros is important again to me because I find solace after hard day's work. But remembering my childhood, our family, we would always hear masses in the Manila Cathedral, particularly during Easter Sundays, no? And just the same, there are also times when here in the Treasury, when our jobs will be very demanding, but as we see the surroundings of Intramuros, some sort of takes away, all this stress and reminds us of how lucky we are to be in this place, surrounded by the history of the Philippines around us. Hope that this treasure of ours could be preserved for the generations to come. I hope that we would not be detached so we could reach out to more people and instill in them a deep sense of our history, the richness of our culture, and a deep sense of the very rich heritage that we have inherited from our forefathers.
It was a very exciting time. That's what I remember most. I was on a holiday and I got a frantic call. Where are you anyway? They have been looking for you. And I said, what about? Having a restoration force as big as Intramuros was at the time, well, didn't exist anywhere in the country. When we came into Intramuros to work, what are we restoring? We do not know. How did it look, except for the ruined walls? That's why we have to dig pictures and pictures and pictures just to be able to provide a background and tell people this is important. This part of the walls look like this. Everything was something that came to us by calling. You'd say that we have to do it right. Intramuros is a beautiful memory of the past. It is like a microcosm of all things good and bad. There are many good stories about Filipinos, people who headed the construction of the walls, and they were Indios. The carvers were Filipinos also. People should follow the regulations more, and that they should not seek exemption all the time. And this applies to both government, church, and private owners. I'm Esperanza Bunag Gatunton. I was hired, I would say, I was one of the first employed in the Intramuros administration structure, and that was pretty 1979. You have many people saying that Intramuros should not be preserved because it is a colonial memory and that should be erased. I don't think so. It represents failure. It represents achievement. So it's about time that our people should see Intramuros is not just a symbol of colonialization, but a symbol of our spirit to rise above that.
Uh, we're going to start now. So welcome everyone to the 34th episode of the Intramuros Learning Sessions. So this is your host, Ran Carcilia, and this episode is brought to you by the Intramuros Administration. We are pleased to have today a topic on cultural mapping with a resource speaker from the National Commission on Culture and the Arts. But before we start, some house rules first. For those who are viewing via Zoom, you may raise your questions via the Q&A button, which is found in the lower portion of the screen. If you are viewing via Facebook, you can raise your questions in the comment section. We are giving out certificates, but only those who have successfully registered and viewed on Zoom will be eligible to get a certificate. A feedback form will then be emailed to you after the session, and the certificate will be sent within a week. Note that this webinar is recorded, and the recording shall be made permanently available in IA social media channels. Now I'd like to call on the Administrator of the Intramuros, to introduce to us today our speaker. Attorney?
Good afternoon, everyone. Today we'll be having a conversation regarding the Philippine Registry of Cultural Property. And no better person can enlighten us on this, better than the project manager of the Philippine Registry of Cultural Property, which is being maintained by the NCCA, the National Commission on Cultural Arts. So Stephen Pamorada is the project manager of PRECUP. Stephen is another
and a number of cultural properties, for example. Also, we will present to you the tools for identification on how to document cultural properties, for example. The minimum data requirements also. When it comes to collecting data on cultural properties, I'll be sharing that in between the presentation. Um, is the public accessibility of our data in the PRECUP. So I'll be sharing with you the website where you can access the data of the PRECUP. PRECUP as a work in progress, so I'll be sharing the challenges, the concerns of many of us when it comes to cultural heritage in general. And lastly, a call to action or steps on how you can help as a normal citizen, or maybe you are a heritage professional, for example, or you're just a supporter of heritage or a friend of heritage. How can you help the advocacy of heritage preservation? Before that, pala, to somehow make it a bit interactive naman, I'll stop sharing my screen for the meantime. Pwede bang malaman, can you type down in the chat box kung saan kayo located, yung mga participants natin in Zoom, and also in the Intramuros Administration Live feed in Facebook. Can you just type down? I can see people from Iloilo, somebody even from Egypt, right? So, magandang hapon or magandang umaga kung nasaan man kayo ngayon. And from Bacolod. So, yan, nice. So, we are all over the Philippines. I thought it's just in Manila. There's also from Tayabas, hi, Mr. Michael Pabulayan. Hello, kumusta? And Pamela Aglabtin from OFW. So, okay, sige, nice. So, I can see that marami palang participants not just in Manila but all across the country. So now, let me go back to my slide. Okay, so let me just share with you this, um, well, para siyang presentation of the dynamics of cultural heritage in one picture. And I'm giving you this main thesis statement, kumbaga, of this presentation that I'm sharing with you today. Culture is life. So, sino ba sa inyo ang alam ang culture and heritage or naririnig nyo siya palagi, pero ano nga ba yung culture in the first place? So, that's my thesis statement na gusto kong i-share, and I'll be elaborating it somehow along the way na buhay ang kultura at parte to ng ating pang-araw-araw na buhay. And you could see in this picture how lively or how vibrant our culture is pag makita natin sa iba't ibang manifestations niya. For example, we could see here, can you type down in the group chat or sa chat box sa Zoom kung anong place to na pinapakita sa picture? Can you type down? Can I see? There it's Quiapo, no? Quiapo Church. And you can see celebration or multitude of people celebrating something. So this is the translation procession in Quiapo. So you can see here an interplay of something that's tangible, which is yung Quiapo Church being the heritage site in Quiapo. Secondly, somewhere in the midst of this multitude of people is the Black Nazarene image. So that's a movable object that also talks about our cultural life and even part of our cultural heritage. Tama ba? Kasi yung Black Nazarene image, it's a historical figure at the same time, iconic religious image, di ba? So it's part of our movable cultural heritage. And lastly, yung intangible naman, we could see here the practice itself, yung translation. So while we could see the people, we could see yung expression nung belief na meron sila, which is yung mismong translation. So we could see here the interplay of tangible and intangible. So, kumbaga, kung mga tao ngayon or mga participants natin ngayon are from Tayabas, Iloilo, from Bacolod, from QC, wherever you are, I guess you guys are cultural bearers na meron kayong set of beliefs or meron kayong pinagmamalaki sa inyong lugar na alam nyo pag sinabing pag taga Batanes ako, ito ang pinaniniwalaan ko and this is what we can feature in our place, di ba? So, that's your culture and that's something that you could live out. Therefore, culture is life and it's part of our system in our city and in our country. So now, yun kasing pinaka-bulk ng PRECUP. Kumbaga, i-document lahat ng mga manifestations of our cultural heritage. So, let me give you a description of what PRECUP is. So, it's the repository of all information pertaining to cultural properties in the Philippines. Both what? What's this? There are two things, tangible and intangible. So, yun na-mention ko kanina, yung manifestations as seen in that picture a while ago of Quiapo Church and it's the Black Nazarene procession, diba? So, tangible siya and intangible. That's deemed significant to our cultural heritage. So, to give you a legal basis on the establishment of the PRECUP. So, maraming batas and I don't want you to dig down further on the law if in case you think the laws are boring, diba? So, pero I'll just present to you just one law and that would somehow encompass the bulk of the things that we talk about when it comes to cultural heritage. So it's the Heritage Law or Republic Act number 10066. Basically, it's the Bible of Philippine cultural heritage protection and preservation. So, can I see din siguro sa Zoom kung familiar kayo dito sa ano na to, sa batas na ito. Can you type can you type number 1 in the Zoom group chat kung familiar kayo ever dito sa batas na to. Para lang makita kung familiar kayo. Just type down 1. Can I see that? Okay, so 1, may nakita akong nagsagot. So at least meron naman kahit pa paano familiar. Or kung hindi man, if it's your first time, so basically I'm just presenting to you the heritage law. So there you have it. And there are other laws. At the bottom, you can see other laws that pertains to cultural heritage. Pero assignment nyo na lang yan, guys. You can take a look at these laws and decrees during your free time. So, Presidential Decree 374, more on National Museum. Yan yung Presidential Decree 1616. This is the law establishing the Intramuros administration. So, yan yung favorite law siguro ng mga taga-IA, nila Atty. Guillier at nila Rancho, di ba? Yan. So, Republic Act also 4846, Cultural Preservation Act, 10086 about the National Historical Commission of the Philippines, so on and so forth. So, assignment ka na lang yan, guys. So, ang primary agency leading the cultural heritage conservation, preservation, and promotion is the National Commission for Culture and the Arts. So that's NCCA. So PRECUP is being operated by the NCCA. So the NCCA is basically the Philippines' de facto Department of Culture, and it's the overall policy-making body coordinating and grants-giving agency for the preservation, development, and promotion of Philippine arts and culture. So, yun po. We are under NCCA. So, yung PRECUP po, basically, it's just a list. So, think about PRECUP as this basic presentation. It's basically listahan ng mga bagay na alam nating importante sa cultural heritage natin. So, kumbaga, usually, naglilista tayo ng maraming bagay. Usually nga yata, naglilista ng utang, hindi po ba? Naglilista ng mga bagay na alam nating importante sa atin. So, therefore, there should be a PRECUP because we need a list that presents what is important in our culture, in our heritage. And it's divided into just two things, basically, tangible and intangible. So, I hope that's clear. Can you type down number 2 in our group chat if that's clear so far? Para naman na-feel ko na nag-gets niyo yung presentation natin. Alright, thank you so much. Interactive tayo kahit pa paano. And then next, what is cultural property? Just in case you're wondering what a cultural property is, kasi I've been talking about that for a few minutes already. Basically, cultural property is interchangeably being used as a term for cultural heritage. So, cultural property equals cultural heritage. Ganun lang siya. And kung i-define natin sa batas, according to Section 3 of the definition of terms in the Heritage Law, ito yung sinasabi, all products of human creativity by which a people and a nation reveal their identity. So, parang ganun pala, big word na, no? But basically, everything that encompasses our culture is enshrined here in this definition. Lahat ng produkto ng pagiging malikain ng isang tao, whether it be, churches, mosques, other places of religious worship, schools, even natural history specimens and sites. So, it's part of what a cultural property is. So, again, whether publicly or privately owned, nakasulat din yan sa batas, movable or immovable, tangible or intangible. I'll be sharing yung highlight dito na publicly and privately owned because there's more explanation to that as we go along this presentation. So, in terms of parang leveling off lang, guys, no? When it comes to the topic that we're presenting today, there are levels when it comes to recognition of heritage significance. So, for example, we have a building here. Anong gagawin natin dun sa building na yun kung alam nating significance sa history, for example, or even a belief system, talking about intangible heritage. So, merong mga phases, identification, registration, categorization, or declaration. You can screenshot this if you like. So, to level off lang, we will be talking about registration here. We'll be focusing on this, registration. When you say registration, it's the act of identifying, or at least the first step of recognizing the heritage significance of a structure through writing it down or putting it in a database, for example. So, ganun siya. So, that's how registration is. In contrast with other levels of heritage significance nga, which is categorization, which is yun na talaga, nagka-classify ka na. Ano bang klaseng building to? Simbahan ba to? Lumang bahay ba to? Bridge ba siya? Commercial building ba siya? So that's how you classify, right? And then the last point here is declaration, which is yung talagang you're already officially recognizing the significance of that structure, of that belief system or intangible heritage, such that it has legal implications or towards giving it funding, giving it the rights to protect it, and so on and so forth. Yun yung declaration. So, but for the sake of leveling off, again, yung naka-encircle here or yung naka-highlight here is registration. So, we will be focusing on that. Kasi yun yung importante palang to start off when it comes to recognizing our heritage. Kailangan mo natin siyang ilista. Dahil kung wala tayong listahan in the first place, hindi natin alam na nag-exist pala siya. Tama ba? Do you agree with me? Just type yes or no. So, patingin nga sa group chat or sa Zoom. Alright. So, thank you. Alright, so this is flow. So, ayoko nang pakita yung sinasabi sa batas kasi very wordy siya. So, I'll just give you a visualization on how things work when it comes to registration of cultural property. So, we have here at the first column, PRECUP, which is the Philippine Registry of Cultural Property. It serves as a powerhouse or a storage or a storehouse of everything or information of our cultural heritage. So, where do we get all this information? So, according to the law, we can see here at the second column, here in this slide, local government units, isa sa mga primary sources of information natin or data natin pagdating sa cultural heritage. Because according to the heritage law, all local government units, and marami yun, 1,700 plus sila sa buong Pilipinas. For example, lungsod ng Maynila or Manila City Hall, they're supposed to submit an inventory of cultural property to the NCCA para sa Philippine Registry of Cultural Property. So, yun. And then, next to local government units, yung national cultural agencies natin. Ano ba itong mga to? So, these are the National Museum, National Historical Commission of the Philippines, National Archives, Commission sa Wikang Filipino, so on and so forth. So, sila din, nagsasubmit din ng inventory of cultural properties according to their areas of responsibility. Yun din, sinasubmit din sa PRECUP. Here naman, at the bottom, you can see here works of national artists and manlilika ng bayan. So, sa NCCA, it's under its jurisdiction that the works of national artists and manlilika ng bayan are considered important cultural properties, and it's under the direct jurisdiction of the NCCA. So that's why, kumbaga, to workflow, directly siyang napupunta sa PRECUP by virtue of it's NCCA who documents and lists down these works. Okay? And then at the rightmost column, you can see private collectors, government agencies, GOCCs, public and private educational institutions na sila din, nagsasubmit din sila ng cultural property nila. But you could see the workflow here. Hindi sila directly pumupunta sa... okay. I hope my sound is clear. Sorry, sinabi lang ng tech na medyo... Can you hear me? Can you type 1 in the group chat kung narinig niyo po ako para lang to measure na okay po ang aking sound? It's clear? It's naman. Okay, thank you so much. Alright, so let me go back to my slide. So, going back to my presentation, thank you. Thank you to the tech of IA. So, you can see here, hindi siya directly yung private collectors, government agencies, so on and so forth, na pupunta sa PRECUP. They usually go first to the national cultural agencies which have cultural properties under their area of responsibility or expertise nila. So, lahat sila, sa rightmost column, pupunta muna sa local or sa national cultural agencies to submit or to report their cultural properties before siya mag-end up sa PRECUP. So, clear ba yun so far? Para, for example, you're a private collector, halimbawa, meron kang tinatagong yaman dyan or something, or you're a property owner of a cultural property or a heritage house, for example. So, it usually goes first to the national cultural agencies before it ends up in the PRECUP. Okay, so clear po ba yun? Okay, so let me proceed. Give figures. Siyempre, we are dealing with a database of cultural properties here. So, what we got so far? So, we have 8,145 cultural properties already registered in the PRECUP. So, if you break it down, ganito yung composition niya, 5,000 plus immovable, 600 plus movable, 1,900 plus intangible, and 3 mix na cultural properties. So, ganun siya. So, you can take a look at it sa website. Later, I'll be presenting that. So, at the right side naman, you could see, ito yung submission rate ng submission. Kasi I mentioned earlier that the local government units are supposed to submit their inventory of cultural properties to the NCCA for the PRECUP. So, currently, we are at 40% submission rate. So, it's not yet at the 50% submission rate or somehow in the, going halfway, pero ayan, at least paunti-unti, we are able to engage them and to encourage them or to require them to submit their inventories of cultural property. So that's as of today. So upon checking the data that we have in the office. So ganyan. So here naman, what are the tools that we use to identify or document our cultural heritage? So this is the PRECUP forms, and there are 3 PRECUP forms basically. Form 1 for built heritage, Form 2 for movable heritage, and Form 3 for intangible heritage. So lahat to available sa NCCA website, digital copy, and basically you could see the data fields that we collect when documenting information on cultural properties. So let me share with you some of them. So may name, local name. So parang I'll just dump it here, no? Para makita nyo yung kung ano yung mga data fields that we collect regarding cultural property. So the purposes of collecting this data is for many reasons. For example, pagdating sa physical condition or geographic coordinates, kasi usually we map it out sa isang mapa, yung location ng cultural properties. Legal description, the reason for that is to identify the owners of that cultural property. Historical period, kung American period pa siya, Spanish colonial period ba siya tinayo or nag-e-exist. General threat level, this talks about medyo sa DRRM. So we know kung ano yung mga threats that meron yung cultural property na yun, like it's prone to earthquake, something like that. So yun po, even potential threats related to DRRM. Nasa fault line ba yan? Yung bahay na yan? Or yung structure na yan? Pero we can see here the yellow one. So this is basically our minimum requirements na hinihingi pag we document the cultural property. So for example, Manila Cathedral in Intramuros. So our basic documentary requirements or data requirements is its name, its location, the owners of that structure, the photo, para meron man at least visualization of that cultural property, and the statements of significance. So parang description. Ano ba ang significance ng structures na to in the historical perspective or in the aesthetic perspective or in the social perspective or in the spiritual perspective. So things like that. So that's the statements of significance. So you could see that more if you check the PRECUP forms in the NCCA website. So it's free for download and you can check it out just in case for heritage professionals here who are doing research on cultural heritage. So okay ba so far? Can I see a show of hands sa ating Zoom group chat? Hello? Is it clear? Hello? If I remove my mic, is it clear now? Can you type yes? This is clear. Hello?
Your audio, Stephen, is
Audio is not clear. Can you hear me? Hello?
nawawala lang.
Nawawala yung audio?
Nawawala lang.
Okay. Hello? Is this clear? Is this better?
I think so.
It is better now. Okay, is this clearer, guys? You can type down yes para if you know that this is clear now this time. Okay. Okay, thank you, Sir Sherwin, for confirming. This is better. Right. Okay, I apologize for that. I don't know then what's happening from our end. But anyway, can we continue to our slide? So we're now at the publicly or the public accessibility rather of the data in the PRECUP. So just in case, okay, we have the list. So where's the list in the first place? So let me present now. Okay, so we have here the publicly accessible database of the PRECUP. It's found in the NCCA website. So that's ncca.gov.ph/Philippine-Registry. Just cultural-property-PRECUP. So you can check it out in the NCCA page. So basically, you could see here, yung Excel file siya. Um, listahan ng cultural properties natin all over the Philippines as registered in the PRECUP. So we call that talapamana. We coined the term talapamana from two words. It's tala or talaan and pamana, which is heritage. So recordings of our heritage or list of our heritage. Kasi meron tayong tala salitaan, di ba, for diksyonaryo, tala arawan for kalendaryo, tala pagkain pagdating sa recipes ng ating mga culinary tradition. So that's why we came up with talapamana naman for talaan ng pamana natin sa Pilipinas. So yun lang naman siya. So we coined that term for everyone. And then kung may talapamana, meron ding mapamana. So mapamana is the map of cultural properties in the Philippines. So para magkaroon tayo ng visualization on where these cultural properties are located. So ganun siya. So halimbawa, you're from Iloilo, so you could see here in the map kung saan located yung mga cultural properties in your place, and also with Iloilo or things like that. In your if you're in Manila, for example, alam ba natin lahat kung nasaan yung mga cultural heritage properties natin? So it would somehow give us an awareness on where these cultural heritage sites, traditions, and objects are located. So that's mapamana for you. So feel free to explore that later. I'll be sharing din later yung mapamana. Mag-share screen tayo. Also, yung cultural inventory submission status. So, this goes out to local government units. Baka meron LGU people here in this Zoom meeting. Can I see a show of hands or can you say hi? So, we know na you're from the LGU. Kasi here at the submission status, we provide here the data. Kung halimbawa, is your LGU already compliant when it comes to submission of cultural heritage inventory na isasubmit dapat sa PRECUP. So this is like an accountability na ito na yung so far yung nagsasubmit or ito pa yung hindi pa nagsasubmit para lang makita natin na sila yung mga kailangan pang i-engage or sila pang kausapin or sino na yung mga nag-compliant na parang okay, bigyan natin sila ng recognition because they are able to comply already to the objectives of the law to submit cultural inventories to the NCCA. Yun. So you can check it out also. It's also a live document in the PRECUP webpage via the NCCA website. So to give you lang a brief breakdown naman in terms of Metro Manila. So we can see here 1,200 plus out of 8,000 plus listed cultural properties sa Manila. So yung parang so far in the document natin, still a work in progress, pero kung makikita natin, it's a big bulk na in Metro Manila, 15% of which of such cultural properties all over the Philippines matatagpuan sa Metro Manila. So it's either kulang yung documentation sa ibang lugar kaya mas maraming data ng Metro Manila or talagang madami lang talagang cultural heritage sa Metro Manila na so far na document na din in the PRECUP. So there you have it. It's 15.2 out of the 100% of cultural properties all over the Philippines. To break it down further, in the city of Manila, kasi syempre medyo crucial din pag City of Manila pinag-uusapan. Ilan nang meron ng nalista sa PRECUP in the City of Manila. So 500 out of 8,145 or 6.2. Actually, madami-dami pa rin siya kung tutuusin when it comes to statistics and cultural heritage. So madami pa rin tayong ma-identify in the City of Manila. Although, syempre, marami pa tayong dapat itagdag dyan. That's what I can just tell you guys. Marami pa, hindi lang 511. And unti-unti naman siya in coordination with the City Hall of Manila naman, who's also active in documenting their inventory of cultural heritage. So, to share with you, for example, yung composition ng merong cultural properties in the City of Manila, those are the declared cultural properties in National Museum, yung mga declared sites and structures of the NHCP, the National Cultural Treasures declared by the National Archives, the Philippine Inventory of Intangible Cultural Heritage. That's another layer. It's national in scope. So, and next, the works of national artists for architecture and visual arts found in the City of Manila. And the last two here, yung mga locally recognized sites and cultural properties in the City of Manila through a local declaration or it's included in the local cultural inventory. So there you have it for the city. So just in case you're wondering, what can be found in the City of Manila? So now, let's break it down further when it comes to cultural properties naman in Intramuros. So meron din tayong 67 out of 500 na nakalista sa Maynila ay matatagpuan naman sa Intramuros District. So that's 13.1 out of the 511 cultural properties already listed in the city of Manila. So let me share with you yung mga pamana natin kung ano yung makikita sa Intramuros. Okay, so can you see it? Here. Can you see the mga pamana? So let me just type down Intramuros para lang makita kayo ng to give you just an overview of what can be found in the Intramuros area. Let me type down Intramuros. So again, this is available in the NCCA website, and you can just check it out on your own. And if you want to explore other places, this is what you got here in Intramuros. So this is the word city. You can see maraming mga icons. So if you click on entry here, you could see Plazuela de Santa Isabel, for example. It's found in this particular area in Intramuros. So ito yung sa mapamana, at least in a visual perspective, where these structures are located. Yung mga icons are based in its corresponding cultural property designation. So yung mga, usually yung mga ones here, these are the markers or historical markers of the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. So yan. Hotel de Santa Lucia, yun yung may mga markers. Ito namang mga yellow ones, yung may sun rays, usually ito yung mga declared na national historical landmarks or national sites, basta under the jurisdiction of NCCA. Meron naman din dito, if you go closer, yung mga may icons na pang national artists, you can see here, yung Dole building in Intramuros, yung previous iteration niya is actually a work of a national artist, or yung original design niya. So it's known as Sure Investment Corporation building. So you can see here, if you guys are from ELM or you're studying Intramuros, you're familiar with Dole, malapit sa round table. So you can see here yan. And also another work of national artists here, yung Knights of Columbus building. It's actually a work of national artist Jose Maria Zaragoza. So at least ito, baka apart from, let's say, Fort Santiago, yun lang yung alam natin sa Intramuros, Manila Cathedral, or San Agustin Church. Definitely there are more to see or to explore when it comes to Intramuros pa lang. And I hope the PRECUP can serve as your reference when exploring all these cultural areas that we have. Even in Intramuros, or expound natin sa mga places na you are part of, or community you are part of. So clear po ba yun so far? Now, I'll be presenting PRECUP as a work in progress. What would I like to share here? You can see a picture of, dahil sa panahon na to, meron tayong pinagdadaan ng pandemya. You can see here, and breaking news pa nga yun, di ba, na hindi matutuloy yung traslasyon. So I showed you a picture of a very vibrant celebration last time. Yun nga, yung traslasyon. Very busy. Ngayon, hindi matutuloy. And you can see here, paano yung practices ng mga deboto, or mga, yun nga, mga participate sa traslasyon. So, hindi siya mangyayari. So, those are just one of the many concerns sa pinagdadaanan natin when it comes to, even practicing our cultural heritage. Kasi nga, merong limitations. And ito yung, kumbaga, in terms of culture, medyo na set aside, as you can see, because meron tayong pinagdadaanan, hindi siya nakikita sa priority. So, kami mismo, in the PRECUP office or in the NCCA, we acknowledge all these challenges and concerns. And kami na rin mismo yung magsasabi na parang marami pang kailangan gawin at hindi pa tapos yung concerns natin at patuloy pa rin yung advocacy natin even from within our government sphere. So, for example, in terms of PRECUP, yung pagdodocument natin ng cultural properties, we have lack of quality data. Some local governments either have no capacity or limited knowledge when it comes to their cultural heritage. There are also emerging views or disagreeing views in sino ba dapat yung mag-identify ng ano dapat yung protect natin. Is it the experts? Is it the grassroots? So I'm just laying laying down the cards here, no? And then the limited knowledge on the laws. Like, for example, even the Republic Act number 10066. So, hindi pa ganun ka-widespread yung information or awareness ng taong bayan na we're supposed to protect our heritage in the first place. So, among other challenges, I'll be showing some pictures. Would anybody know what this place is? Well, this is in Manila. It's a heritage building. So, ang concern here, what I'm telling you is the concerns in demolitions all over the place. No? So, it's still happening despite having the law. Hindi po ba? So, the question here is, meron ba talagang ginagawa? Or meron ba talagang, extensive ba talaga yung pag-identify pa lang ng ating cultural heritage? Ba't nangyayari pa rin itong mga concerns na to or mga challenges na to? Bakit may ginigiba pa rin or bakit meron pa rin naku-compromise na mga cultural heritage properties? Not just built up, even intangible heritage na nawawala. Diba? Hindi natin na-document. So, in terms of man-made and natural disasters, do you know this place? Are you familiar with this? Can anyone in the chat box answer kung ano yun? Yung nakita niyong picture na yun? That's in Bohol, correct, Sir Christian. So, that's in Bohol. Kumbaga, prone yung ating mga cultural heritage to man-made and natural disasters. So, we acknowledge all these things and alam nyo, hindi lang talaga government yung kailangan natin asahan to really document all these things, to protect all these things. It's really gonna be a multidisciplinary action to help one another towards protecting our cultural heritage. So, we're presenting this because we acknowledge it. And again, kailangan din talaga namin ng tulong. If modesty stated, yun talaga ang gusto namin sabihin. So, well, we turn all these challenges into opportunities. So these are the things that we try to do from within. In terms of the PRECUP in NCCA, we try to formulate policies in order to somehow address proactively all these concerns, like producing policies or guidelines when it comes to identification proactively of our cultural heritage. Meron po tayong ginagawa yan behind the scenes. We will also be providing manuals for PRECUP forms, training workshops para mas aware yung ating LGUs and to capacitate them towards documenting our cultural heritage. Social media productions or promotions rather and infographics are also on the way. So we are doing that. We are also considering appropriate database management system kasi as you can see, we are only maximizing yung Google Maps, Google Sheets para at least meron tayong live presentation of our data so far, but we are also working on improving that database management system to present our data better and for the service of the public, mas maayos yung ating regulation and processing. Also, in terms of dialogue and coordination with government agencies, we also do that for the purpose of ensuring the recognition and protection of these cultural properties. Lastly, this is the thing that we usually do with the local government units, is to conduct a cultural mapping program in those LGUs, and it's like a technical assistance of the NCCA to capacitate the LGUs to identify their cultural heritage, both tangible and intangible. So, yan po ang ginagawa natin, unti-unti, although a work in progress, pero slowly but surely. And also, let me present this, speaking of cultural mapping toolkit, we would like to, of course, make it a participatory effort to identify our cultural heritage. So this goes out to everybody. It's also downloadable in the NCCA page. Yung cultural mapping toolkit, it's downloadable. So it's the framework that that was formulated by the NCCA team towards a participatory cultural mapping in local communities. So take a look at it kasi makakatulong din to for you guys who are interested in identifying and further exploring our cultural heritage, especially in our own communities. I really encourage that. So, ito yung sanang vision natin, magkaroon tayo ng ideal ecosystem wherein the government and the community are joint hands when it comes to identifying, recognizing, and protecting our cultural heritage, whether it be intangible, tangible movable, or tangible built, even natural heritage na may cultural significance. So we want to come up with that ecosystem. And left on our own, kami sa PRECUP, we're just recognizing things through listing it down in our database. But moving forward, yung protection nun, yung regulation nun, so we need to work hand in hand towards achieving this ideal ecosystem. So now, what you can do? What can you do rather? What can you do to help? So this is the call to action pagdating sa pag-identify ng cultural heritage. Again, I'm saying identifying. How can you help in identifying our cultural heritage? Especially kung kayo ay from Bacolod, for example. You're from Iloilo. You're from Batanes. You're from maybe somebody from the overseas, diba? What can you do to help? So I'll just give you 3 steps basically on some calls to action here. Number 1 is we encourage everyone to assist your local government units in identifying the cultural heritage in your neighborhood. Because left on our own, for example, most of the staff in the NCCA are based in Manila. So what about those people or those cultural heritage properties that are being endangered or that are endangered in the regions? So if you're part of that community, we really encourage you to prompt your local government in helping to identify the cultural heritage in your town. So that could be through writing them letters, engaging them, or tagging them in Facebook. Minsan ganun na nga lang ginagawa natin, di ba? So there are many ways to engage them and to capacitate them in identifying the cultural heritage in your neighborhood. Because minsan, sa inyo nanggagaling yung knowledge hindi nga galing sa amin. So we want to achieve that parang holistic framework in achieving or identifying our cultural heritage. Meron coming from the community and also coming from us na would also complement what you know of. Kasi for example, did you know na meron palang work of national artists in Intramuros? Tapos yung taga Intramuros hindi alam na meron palang ganun. Or if you're from, let's say, Mindanao, alam nyo ba na may ganitong national artist work dyan? Pero kami, hindi namin alam kung ano yung intangible heritage niyo because it's yet to be documented or to be listed down and even to be identified by our local government units. So that's number 1. Number 2, we need to encourage education and dialogue on cultural heritage. So I see some of you are from the academe, right? So I see from some people from the schools, colleges, universities. So ito lang, medyo bine-brainwash ko kayo or something like that to explore or to consider using cultural heritage as your research for your thesis or for your final paper or things like that. Kasi we believe that cultural heritage is something that's interdisciplinary. So if you're from business sector, you're from accountancy, for example, engineering, merong relate yan sa cultural heritage. And we encourage those kinds of research towards deepening further yung ating knowledge and research about cultural heritage. Kasi usually nga, hindi pa nabubuksan yung cultural lens ng bawat isa na nag-exist pala itong mga cultural heritage sites and practices natin. So I'm really encouraging that na even in your thesis or kung gusto nyo mag-intern sa NCCA, yan, kung pwede na mag-internship in the future, for example, yung mga ganun things, I would really encourage that to for you guys to consider. And then lastly, if you know of a cultural property in your area, not necessarily ikaw yung may-ari, pero pwede rin naman kung ikaw ang may-ari ng isang work ni Amor Solo, for example, ganyan, if you're a owner of a work of a national arts, for example, or even a concerned citizen that you know that there's a heritage house or there's a cultural practice that's being endangered currently, we encourage you guys to prompt us or to prompt your LGUs. That's a way of reporting towards really intensifying and comprehensively identifying our cultural heritage in our respective communities, and it would really help us a long way if you would do so. So clear po ba yun so far? And I would encourage more conversations on this maybe during the Q&A tab, no? Things on how you can help our cultural heritage or identifying our cultural heritage. So that's just really about it, my presentation. If you have more information on the PRECUP, you can contact us. That's our email below, precup@ncca.gov.ph. If you have also concerns or you've seen some maybe bugs or things to be corrected in our database or things like that, or on ways to improve our database, we would really welcome it much. So please contact us at the email address below. So precup@ncca.gov.ph. So on that note, thank you for listening and feel free to ask questions during the Q&A portion. Maraming salamat po.
Maraming salamat, Stephen. Thank you for the presentation. That was a very enlightening talk as we get a glimpse on how our government works with respect to mapping our culture. Now we are opening our Q&A. Stephen, you're still on share screen. Yeah. So we are now, Stephen, maybe if you can close the share screen. Yeah, right. So we are now opening our Q&A. So for those who are in Zoom, make sure to type your questions in the Q&A button below. So if you have questions, do not type in the chat button. Please type them in the Q&A button. And if you are in Facebook, feel free to use the comment section, and then we will retrieve them later. So we look forward to all of your questions. And so we're going to start now. So, Stephen, the PRECUP was established by RA 166 in 2010, but it was only mobilized, as I gather, in 2015. So, why do you think it took some time before the project started to materialize? And if so, do you think that this is the first time that the government has started comprehensively mapping and documenting our heritage?
Okay, so I came in the picture 2015 nga, as you mentioned, in the PRECUP team. We started as a project, and then eventually it became an office. So towards implementing naman the law, the NCCA also worked on other projects and initiatives towards implementing the PRECUP in the past. So upon checking the documents, they've done so far efforts naman in the past. And then eventually, noong 2015 na lang, they really decided na why don't we make up our minds and really gather some people to really start out to pilot PRECUP na. So ganun siya. Although in the past, prior to 2015, I'm aware that there's TAWID, yung mga cultural mapping programs na yun yung mga original, even research grants or grants ng NCCA na nagpo-provide ng research on cultural heritage. So those are the parang premature forms of the cultural mapping and inventorying of cultural heritage na ginawa ng NCCA. And ngayon nga, because there's a law naman mandating local government units and other government agencies to establish the PRECUP. So that's why, yun nga, in 2015, nag-start siya. And then, kumbaga ngayon sa development stage tayo, fast forward to 2020 in establishing it and improving the data for public consumption and public services.
Was there any model or a registry that was the basis for the PRECUP when it was first being conceptualized in the early 2010s? Was there? Or for example, from another country, maybe?
Yes. We look into other, like for example, in the US, you have the National Register of Historic Places. Ganun, you could see how they work. Meron nga, actually, mas badass yung kanilang mga database. Talagang medyo GIS pa oriented, yung mga ganun. So, yun yung nakikita natin even in our neighboring countries in Southeast Asia. You could see how they present their data, how they list on their data in Korea, in Indonesia. So, we use them as reference then when we are establishing the PRECUP noong 2015. And fast forward, again, considering international best practices towards presenting the data and providing those data to our public.
It's good to hear that the PRECUP is a work in progress. Say, for example, a lot has already been accomplished and cultural properties have already been fully documented. What then becomes of the vision for the PRECUP once that happens? All of it has been listed down. What next?
Okay, the very vision, as also enshrined in the law, is for it to become a repository of all information on cultural heritage. So it basically serve as a one-stop shop of cultural heritage in the Philippines. So we cannot do it on our own. Like for example, ako lang and our team in NCCA would do that for the rest of the country. So we need all the help that we can towards achieving that. So we are trying to intervene naman through policy formulation, coordination with local government units, cultural agencies, and so on and so forth, even the relevant interested parties that we have, the general public, the students. So all these stakeholders, we need to come together towards really comprehensively identify our cultural heritage. And it really takes time. Imagine, it says in our law na 50 plus years old and older na heritage sites or structures rather, 50 plus years old structures, parte na siya ng ating important cultural properties, di ba? So, imagine parang tao lang din yun na nag-birthday every day. Baka tomorrow, 50 years old na siya kasi 49 years old pa lang siya today. So, parang ganun lang. I'm just giving you an example. Marami pa talagang kailangan gawin and we need all the help that we can. So,
Thank you for that. So we have a question from Randy Noblesa. So, Sir Stephen, good afternoon. May I know the status of the fourth PRECUP form regarding natural heritage? Is it already included or is it going to be integrated sometime soon? Is there a fourth form for natural heritage?
okay, thank you, Sir Randy. Hello. Hello from Hello in Marinduque. So, good to hear from you. Yung natural heritage, we decided na to integrate it in Form 1, which is yung immovable cultural heritage natin. So parang we decided na immovable cultural heritage encompasses both the cultural and the natural side of things. So yun yung ginagawa namin ngayon na improvement ng Form 1 na originally it's supposed to be just for built heritage, but now we are also integrating the aspect or data fields when it comes to capturing the natural heritage aspect or data fields dun sa Form 1. So, it's still, ginagawa na, development stage siya ngayon. But before the end of the year, we aim to launch the newest revisions of our PRECUP forms. So, thank you, Dr. Randy.
There's a question from Albert Kirby Tardeo. So, he's asking, as a private citizen, can we register a site or article for registration? So can a private citizen register themselves, or do we need the LGU who will register for us?
Yes, as mentioned earlier in the workflow, it is ideal that you present it to your local government unit, yung property na yun, para din ma-capture nila yung data na yun. Yun yung eventually masasubmit nila sa PRECUP. Again, pagdating sa workflow, hindi siya directly mapupunta sa PRECUP. It's usually nagiging middlemen si LGU and cultural agencies pagdating sa pagsasabit ng inventory of cultural properties. However, if you would like to share with us, parang kami naman would serve as a coordinating body, you can also email us about that cultural property, and we can also serve as a clearinghouse or a coordinating body to present it to the pertinent LGU or to the pertinent cultural agency, depending on its area of responsibility.
We have another question from Zoom. So, since there is still a pandemic, kindly share tips on how to gather data for cultural research amidst the travel restrictions. So, any thoughts?
Nice. Yes, first off, maybe you can try to refer to our database so far. Again, it's publicly accessible. Baka yun yung makatulong first-hand sa pag-search na ng inyong cultural heritage. So, we encourage that. Also, but this is beyond the PRECUP na. Merong mga online libraries na we usually refer to. Kami usually pa naghahanap din kami sa halimbawa, mga works of national artists, we usually explore yung mga catalogs ng mga auction houses, kung may works of national artists dyan. So, minsan ganun yung ginagawa namin. Medyo manual siya. Although, sometimes it's actually better to these days na things are being shifted online na talaga. So, talaga na-digitize na unti-unti yung ating mga resources. So, ganun pa lang. But first off, what I can again suggest is to refer to our database as your reference for your research, and hopefully makatulong.
The next question is about privacy. So, paano mapapangalagaan ang privacy issues ng mga pribadong individual kaugnay sa kanilang pag-aaring cultural artifacts?
Okay, salamat sa tanong na yan. First off, there's a clear provision in the law that the information on the ownership and the location of that cultural property, when I say location, yung very exact na ito sa 633 General Luna Street in Intramuros. Well, that's the address of NCCA, by the way. So, hindi siya ganun ka-specific towards really, yun nga, ensuring the confidentiality of these cultural properties. So, while there's delineation between, okay, we would like to inform that these things are existing, so we only provide certain information, but not to divest the owner of their possession or to breach their confidentiality. So yun talaga, clear yun sa PRECUP, and that's part of our data privacy policy in PRECUP to ensure that the location and the name of the owners of these cultural properties are protected so that it's confidential siya to the public for the sake of course, protecting the identity of these owners. So ganun siya. You can check the data privacy statement of the PRECUP in the NCCA website.
Thank you for that. Our next question is from Mylene Leasing. Hi, thanks for the very informative lecture. When you said that cultural properties show the identity of a nation, how far back does this mean, considering that the Philippines as a nation is 122 years old? Also, if this is the definition, what happens to cultural heritage properties that may not reflect the identity of the nation because they are too old, so for example, hundreds of thousands of years old, but to establish a continuity with this identity? Any thoughts?
You know, when it comes to cultural properties, okay, there may be debates when it comes to, okay, yung national identity naman natin hindi pa nabubuo, or yung history natin goes all the way till Magellan's time lang, 1521. But yun nga more than that, we also capture the local significance of these things. So for example, may nakita tayo mga pre-colonial artifacts or even structures or archaeological settlements. So although syempre wala pa namang Pilipinas nung panahon na yun, but it's basically located in the Philippines, and therefore it's worthy of identification, recognition, and even protection should that be the case. So lahat yun, tinatry nating i-document, and kung in terms of classification towards identifying the layers of its importance, lahat yun kino-consider natin. And although ayan nga, may mga contestations when it comes to national identity and all that, we harness on the local identity because usually the sense of belongingness of the community would really matter when it comes to giving importance to that certain thing, whether it be a heritage house, or it be a movable object, or like an archaeological site, or archaeological excavations, or even intangible heritage. Especially intangible heritage, even prior to the establishment of again, the Philippines, or the so-called discovery of the Philippines by the Europeans, lahat naman ito nag-exist na even prior to the occupations of these colonizers, diba? So, kailangan lahat yun makapture natin, ma-document natin, because lahat yun nag-drum up towards really achieving understanding the wealth of our culture and heritage in all its manifestations and expressions.
What about Filipino cultural properties found abroad? Like, for example, the Boxer Codex or the Doctrina Christiana, among other things, mostly movable. Will they be covered in the list?
So far, we are not able to document it, no. But in terms of legal perspective, there's a provision in the law that talks about entering into agreement with that state party to maybe recover, or if not recover, at least have an agreement that these two state parties would come together to protect that certain cultural heritage. So may mga ganun naman, or even repatriate nga those cultural properties. So may ganong aspect of the law, but it's more on the regulation side of things. So iba na siya sa mismong pag-register.
Okay. This one is from Nonya Chonko. She's the director of the Santa Rosa Study Center.
Hi, Miss Nonya.
So,
yes.
The situation in our locality, we worked on a local cultural ordinance, and to date, no IRR, leaving the identified colonial structures to the mercy of the local chief executive and the parish priest. As a heritage advocate, we plan to ask the National Museum ICP declarations for those structures, but with the planned transfer of their regulatory functions to NCCA, what can we do?
Yeah, that's a very specific question, no? So, hi, Miss Nonya. Good to hear from you. Yes, there's a, as you, yun, di ko siya na-mention, but in the new developments in cultural heritage is that the regulatory functions of the National Museum will be transferred to the NCCA eventually by 2021. I think in tranches yata yung distribution of regulatory functions to NCCA. So let's talk about it, Ms. Nonya. I think we can discuss that privately. Na you can refer us those concerns na ito yung mga colonial structures na kailangan nating protect in Santa Rosa City. And first off, kailangan tingnan natin kung naka-identify na siya sa PRECUP, and saka tayo mag-proceed in terms of, again, the regulatory actions, which is to declare it and to protect it eventually. So thank you, Ms. Nonya.
This one is from Zoom. So what about properties, houses specifically? His question was heritage houses. What about if they are moved? And say, for example, they've been moved to a resort somewhere north. So will they be included still in the PRECUP?
Challenging yan in a sense na pag nalipat na kasi yung structure, sino yung dapat may jurisdiction over that property. So in our database, actually sa local government of Bagak in Bataan, I think he or she is referring to that resort in Bataan na nagka-transfer ng heritage structures. Yung mismong Bagak LGU actually already included it in their inventory. So kung under its jurisdiction, okay, it's under the jurisdiction of Bagak Bataan. But if a certain LGU would have its jurisdiction over that property, habang nandun pa dun sa area na yon, I guess sila yung may dapat jurisdiction over that.
Covered ba sa inyo sa listahan are the sites which are now empty but once was the home of a very important site? For example, the Ateneo site in Intramuros. The Ateneo is no longer there, but the property, the empty lot still exists. Will the lot qualify for inclusion in the list?
In terms of technicality, kung wala na nag-exist na structure, usually we're not able to document or find its significance. However, if again, that's why there's a PRECUP form and there are relevant interested parties who are concerned that this site, yung site na lang mismo, even without a structure, is worth documenting because of these, arguable evidences na, it used to be a historical site or it used to be the site of, as you mentioned, Ateneo de Manila, then that could also be considered for registration.
This one is from Sherwin Ramosa. So in your assessment, what are the reasons why LGUs fail to submit the PRECUP?
Many factors. Una, talagang hindi siya priority. And that's the frank answer to that. And secondly, may budget restrictions and other factors within the LGU. Internal concerns na lang siya. However, we try to engage with the DILG. So sila yung talagang supervisory body for the LGUs, diba? So we also partnered with that through DILG-NCCA joint memorandum circulars to really cascade those concerns on cultural properties and even requesting them to a joint memorandum circular, please submit your cultural inventories. So yun yung mga try pa rin nating i-engage, and we try also proactively to do that. Na talagang mag-send kami ng letters, engaging them na we invite you to consider the mandates of the law to submit that which states that you should submit your cultural inventory, cultural property inventory to us. So ginagawa natin yan.
For LGUs, what do you think is the appropriate department for handling PRECUP submissions? Is it the tourism office, the planning office? What do you think?
For now, yes, as what the law says in Section 14 of RA 10066, the LGU through their cultural offices should submit the inventory of cultural properties. However, in the absence of a cultural office, for example, it's usually the tourism office who takes on that job. So there's no clear delineation na dapat tourism lang or cultural office lang. It's usually talaga a partnership within the offices in the LGU to come together in identifying your cultural heritage. So ang evidence niyan is yung local culture and arts councils. Kasi ang composition ng local culture and arts councils, yung city building official, yung city assessor's office, yung city architect, or yung tourism office. So, hindi lang nga yun, di ba? But in the case of other LGUs, minsan minsan di ba ibang LGUs na meron na talagang sariling historical commission or historical cultural office, something like that. So, kung meron ng ganun, definitely sila dapat yung in charge. In the absence of such, it's just usually, pero hindi talaga siya stated explicitly na tourism office siya. So, ganun siya.
We have a question from Lorraine Siliante. So, the question is, why would any private owner want to be declared or preserve, or why would any private owner want to be declared, or why would they want to preserve their buildings when it is very difficult and expensive to do so?
Hi, Miss Lorraine. Thanks for the question. I know Miss Lorraine in Escolta. So, I think she's asking this question for the sake of everybody who might be also experiencing the same concern. So, declaration in itself, parang, it's just for posterity purposes. However, depending on the LGU, there might be some incentives that goes with that declaration, especially if you are being declared through or there's an ordinance in the LGU that provides for an incentive or tax incentives at that. Yung real property tax natin, tax break or ma-exempt because declared kayo. So, the reason why we protect in the first place, of course, meron din siyang implications or there are also benefits according to the law. Again, funding, technical assistance, so on and so forth. So, ganun siya. May benefits naman when you have something declared as a cultural property.
Thank you for that. Next question, does NCCA have plans to do an app for the list that people can access even if they are offline? I think this is a good thing, especially if you are traveling, so you will be aware of the cultural properties in different areas.
I totally agree with that. Thanks for the question. That's also part of our parang roadmap towards really implementing the PRECUP or presenting PRECUP data or the information of our cultural heritage in various media. So, ang current, well, something in the pipeline is to really hire specialists like UX specialists, yung gumagawa ng mobile applications, and even yung harnessing our IT arm in the NCCA to develop a website in order to present properly our data. Even a GIS specialist, for example, towards presenting the data of cultural properties in spatial perspective. So we're also again in the pipeline trying to consider that for next year kasi unti-unti tayo in the development stage. At least good to know that you also ask that question because that's what also we want to do. And there are also attempts in the past naman na trying to present data of cultural properties from the PRECUP in a mobile application. So, but eventually, yung towards the improvement, so we are also considering that. So, stay tuned. And if you know somebody, please refer to us, please email us. So, thank you so much.
Thank you, Stephen. Can you tell us something about your records management system? So, I suppose that with all the forms, isn't it that the PRECUP is too paper reliant? And if so, is there any effort towards the eventual full what do you call that, electronization or whatever? Is there such a
Yes.
So that's the question.
Yes, we are actually exploring that again in the pipeline, yung automation of cultural property encoding. Kasi we're actually piloting as we speak yung City of Manila, the province of Cagayan, the city of Vigan, for what we call as an electronic form. So it's being run for now in Google Forms. Yung parang talagang diretso na siya, parang output niya is Excel na siya. So it's a data that you can just run like in a map or so parang ganun in a technical side of things. So we are also exploring that. And ngayon nga, as we speak, pinapilot na siya. So let's see how it works. If that can also be used in other LGUs. So let's see through this pilot testing. So thank you.
We have a question from Gabriel Caballero. Thanks for the info, Stephen. For owners of land who have found archaeological remains, what is the benefit of having their sites placed in the PRECUP? What benefits will be provided for those landowners if their sites are declared as cultural property? And what are also the proof required to be designated as an archaeological site in the PRECUP?
Okay. Usually, let me go back when it comes to the area of responsibility of the national cultural agencies. So, when it comes to archaeological excavations, it really is the National Museum who is in charge of that. So, it's the National Museum who assesses and takes a look at the property. And if that property or maybe the excavations that can be found in that certain site is worthy of declaration, that's where implications in terms of funding, priority funding, and protection comes into place. So ganun siya. So for National Museum, it's up for the National Museum toward with its applicable guidelines to assess and maybe considered as important and maybe worthy of declaration. So ganun ko lang muna siya tingnan kasi may process ang National Museum when it comes to identifying these things na worthy of declaration and eventually being included in the PRECUP.
If, say, for example, a property was listed, is there a process for delisting?
Yes. Ang guidelines natin, if that structure or that practice, for example, has become extinct or cannot be recognized such that it has lost its value, or kumbaga, giniba na talaga siya. So yun, grounds for delisting talaga siya. But we put those cultural properties in a separate delisted database na also publicly accessible. Kung makita nyo, may separate tab dun sa Excel sheet natin or spreadsheet natin online, delisted properties. So you can take a look at that.
Is inclusion in the PRECUP a basis for, let's say, for example, for the NCCA to issue a cease and desist order or a cultural property which is being demolished? Is it enough basis that the property is in the PRECUP, or it has to be declared?
At the onset, the registration of a cultural property in the PRECUP is just for records purposes, and that's just about it. However, if there's another layer, again, if it's declared, that's where cease and desist orders can be served. So, pero depende pa rin kasi marami tayong cases ngayon, for example, 50 plus years old or older na mga structures being demolished. So, it's stated naman in the law that this is under the jurisdiction of a certain cultural agency. So, that pertinent cultural agency can serve that cease and desist order. So, covered pa rin siya ng batas in that aspect. It's just that it's not NCCA directly, but through its cultural agencies such as NHEP, National Museum, can do that in behalf of NCCA.
You mentioned just now the phrase pertinent cultural agency. Who decides who is the pertinent cultural agency?
Depende. I was not able to present it in our talk, no? But for example, for structures 50 plus years old, it's the National Historical Commission of the Philippines. Even for works of national heroes, it's the NHEP. For National Museum, it's the archaeological and traditional ethnographic materials that goes out to National Museum. For NCCA, it's the works of national artists and manlilikha ng bayan. For National Archives, archival documents which are dating at least 50 years old and older. So yun yung mga na-mention sa batas. So depending on where that particular cultural property falls under those categories, so the pertinent cultural agency would be the ones in charge of regulating that cultural property. Maybe cease and desist order, or of course declaring it naman para hindi laging sinistop natin demolition, para ma-declare naman siya eventually. Pwedeng ganun.
Next question is from Isidra Reyes. What are the main reasons why even declared properties or works of national artists are being cleared for demolition? Who decides in the delisting of declared properties, and is there due process in the delisting process?
Yes. For me, hi, Mrs. Isidra. Good to hear from you. We usually talk to one another when it comes to issues surrounding heritage. So, yung concern na yan, for me, I'll just put it in good faith to our decision makers or agency heads na talagang sila naman yung nagmi-meet when it comes to deciding on the fate or the situation of these heritage structures. So there might be they might have found some reasonable grounds why they decided that way. So I put it that way na lang na meron naman pinagdadaan ng proseso and sila yung deciding authority when it comes to clearances when it comes to these heritage structures. So it's really up for the cultural agencies such as National Museum, and NCCA to provide the information on the grounds why these heritage structures are given clearance. So yun, and yun yung ipoprovide ng ating mga national cultural agencies on the grounds why these things are clear. Kasi minsan ang concern, no, bakit dinemolish? Ano bang reason kung bakit dinemolish? So we could see through their resolutions and in the documents that pertains to why they decided that way, kung bakit sila nag-arrive dun sa decision na yun. Again, it all boils down to decision making. Kung ano yung magiging situation or magiging ang fate ng heritage structure na yun.
So we have a very interesting question from Junard Cruz. So this is very specific. How about the works of, for example, a national artist for dance? How would you register that?
Okay, the pertinent cultural agency pertaining to performing arts is the Cultural Center of the Philippines. So, pagdating sa registration of cultural properties related to dance, things like that, it's really the Cultural Center of the Philippines in charge of that. Pero I'm not saying pa the layer of it's a work of a national artist. Basta anything particular to dance, performing arts, theater, such things, it's really the CCP who registers those properties. So when it comes to naman to ano ba yung dapat protect pagdating sa works of a national artist for dance? Is it the manuscript? Is it the dance sequence that needs to be protected? So that is still subject for let's say confirmation or discussion because kailangan ma-constitute natin kung ano talaga yung work na sinasabi dito.
Is there any qualifications for the work of national artists? Because under RA 1066, it only stated their works of national artists. But is there further qualifications under that? Because let's say, for example, we are given the situation, a national artist for architecture painted a painting. So this is not architecture anymore. This is not a building, but a painting. Will the painting by the national artist, well, technically that is still the work of a national artist, but it's not architecture. So will the painting by the national artist for architecture be given the same treatment as if it was a building?
Well, usually with the way we process things, for example, we list down primarily, for example, for Amor Solo as a national artist, we list down yung talagang alam natin according to his known expertise and for the reason why he was declared in the first place. So, national artist for visual arts, we list down the things na visual artworks niya. So, however, kung halimbawa, gumawa pa siya ng building all of a sudden, hindi pa natin siya naililista or parang gumagawa lang tayo ng references on that, but still subject to discussion in a policy related to what ifs. So those are the what ifs na still subject to discussion, and we welcome that conversation pa rin naman towards really understanding that the works of national artists are not just pertaining to their particular art form, but it comes a long way. So let's keep that conversation going.
But for now, for example, if there's a national artist for architecture, we will only consider their works in architecture, right? Under the present.
Yes, for now. And again, there are still what ifs, so let's still talk about it.
Thank you. Another from Isidro Reyes. Are LGU building officials required to check the PRECUP in the process of issuing demolition permits? Shouldn't clearances from the NCCA, National Museum, or the NSCP be required before demolition? Before demolition permits are issued and applications for demolition permits revised? Sorry, I'm trying to Yeah, is a reference in the PRECUP a requirement? Should it be a requirement for building officials before any issuances of demolition permits?
You know, when we talk about building officials, they're actually answerable to DPWH na body. There's a certain DPWH body na parang parang a, a body for city building officials or municipal building officials. And there's actually a memorandum order to towards these building officials that they should coordinate whatever cultural properties that may be affected by yun nga, demolition permits, and things like that. So, importante na yung coordination na yun ay ma-establish siya and talagang ma-implement siya. Because, again, let's be frank about it that there are some na talagang hindi sumusunod. And it's important that they becoming answerable to the DPWH, being a building official or building officials, they have to adhere to that memorandum order. So, and then, importante nga yun kasi nga, it's yung list of cultural properties or inventory of cultural properties in that locality. They should really refer to that because it's an official document by the LGU that these are the things worthy of protection and recognition in the first place.
Thank you for that. Unfortunately, we are running out of time for the Q&A. We still have more than 50 questions, so we cannot answer all. But don't worry because we still have something for you before we end this webinar. So we're going to have a quiz bee again. So another ILS mini quiz bee. So the topic will be about the presentation earlier. Okay, so everyone is free to join our quiz bee. So you can go to menti.com and enter the code 5246001 or just capture the QR code as shown in the screen. So, by joining in the ILS Mini Quiz Bee, you get a chance to win Intramuros Team Beep Cards, Intramuros Team T-shirt, and Intramuros Team Tote Bag. So, how do you join? You need to go to menti.com, enter the code 5246001, or capture the QR code as shown in the screen, and most importantly, enjoy. So, if ever you win, and by the way, we will only acknowledge only one winner. So the top notcher, so only the top notcher will win our prize. So if ever you win this contest, you can claim your prize by, but first you need to use your real name. So in the game, you need to use your real name. And then after you win, you need to screenshot your phone. And then afterwards, please email us the following: your screenshot, your complete mailing address so that we can mail the prizes to you, and of course a valid government issued ID. And then you can send them to helpdesk@intramuros.gov.ph. So that's helpdesk@intramuros.gov.ph. Okay, again, so go to menti.com and enter 5246001. So there will be 10 questions for this game. And in order for you to win, hindi lang enough na tama yung sagot, pabilisan din po. So I'd now like to call on Jeffrey Yap, our quiz operator, to share his screen so that we can already start. Right. Okay, so maybe we can start. Jeff, we shall start? Yes, we shall start. Right, so first question. The PRECUP was established by what law? RA 10066, PD 1616, RA 9470, or RA 8492? 3, 2, 1. Time's up. Correct answer is RA 1066. Congratulations to those who got the correct answers. Next question. Second question. What is the meaning of PRECUP as per RA 10066? There are 4 choices. Choose wisely. The correct answer is Philippine Registry of Cultural Properties. Next. Question number 3. It refers to all products of human creativity by which a people and a nation reveal their identity, as per RA 10066. Art, science, human activity, or cultural property. Time's up. Answer is cultural property. That is correct. Next question. Refers to a unique cultural property found locally possessing outstanding historical, cultural, artistic, or scientific value. NCT, ICP, NHL, or heritage zone. Time's up. The correct answer is National Cultural Treasure. Right? 5th question. It refers to a cultural property having exceptional cultural, artistic, and historical significance to the Philippines. NCT, ICP, NHL, or heritage zone. Time's up. Correct answer is important cultural properties. Next question. Question number 6. Refers to historical, anthropological, archaeological, artistic, geographical areas and settings that are culturally significant to the country. Areas and settings. Correct answer is heritage zones. Heritage zones. We're talking about an area or a setting. Question number 7. What are the 2 types of cultural properties under PRECUP? Private and public, tangible and intangible, movable and immovable, or local and foreign? Time's up. Correct answer is tangible and intangible. Question number 8. What are the 2 types of tangible cultural properties under the PRECUP? Private and public, tangible and intangible, movable and immovable, local and foreign. Time's up. The answer is movable and immovable. Question number 9. The following are cultural agencies under RA 10066 except Nayong Filipino, National Museum, National Historical Commission, Commission sa Wikang Filipino. Time's up. Correct answer is Nayong Filipino. So it is not a cultural agency under RA 10066. And then finally, last question. The following are official declarations under the law except National Cultural Treasures, Important Cultural Properties, National Historical Landmark, or National Parks. Time's up. The correct answer is National Park. Yes, that's right. National Park. Okay, so do we have a winner? Okay, so our top notcher is, we have Edward. So, yeah, Edward, so for you to claim your prize, you need to screenshot your phone, the phone that you used, and please submit your valid government ID so that we can send over the prize. Now, if you fail to redeem your prize, the prize will go to Kia, the second placer, Kia, Amador, Echeverria. So thank you, everyone. Thank you everyone for joining in our quiz, and thank you, Jeff, for operating our quiz for us. Now, before we end, so feel free to subscribe to our social media channels. The Intramuros Administration is available in Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. And for those who missed our episode or who came in late, don't worry, because we're going to upload our episode later in YouTube. So just key in Intramuros Administration or go to bit.ly/IAILS. IAILS is in all caps. And don't forget to subscribe. And we are also available in Google Arts and Culture. So if you missed going to our museums, you can visit our collection electronically through our Google Arts and Culture page. So feel free to browse our museum artifacts via Google Arts and Culture. And please stay tuned for our next episode on October 30 at 6 p.m. Philippine time. Will be our third segment of trademarking Philippine heritage in pursuit of sui generis geographical indications. So part 3 will deal with mapping culture and flavor. Specifically, it will be about South Cotabato cacao. So our next Intramuros Learning Sessions episode, the 34th, will be about cacao. Will be about the Mindanao cacao. Okay, so before we end, Stephen, would you like to say some final words? Stephen, you're on mute.
Sorry for that. Thank you so much again to IA, Rancho, Sir Jeffrey Yap, and Attorney Gillier for this opportunity to present the PRECUP to the public. Again, if you have questions on cultural properties, cultural heritage, and its registration, you can always email us PRECUP, that's PRECUP, at ncca.gov.ph. So that's just about it. Hope to see you around and stay safe. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, speaker. So until next time, so please stay tuned to our next episode. But for now, good day and thank you again.